So you look at the data. So we have ChatGPT being used by 800 million. All the data I see, and this is typically survey data because ChatGPT doesn't release this, says at least half of them are using it for shopping. Wow. So we have 400 million people using ChatGPT for shopping.
Welcome to today's episode of the Ecommerce Revolution Podcast, where we dive into the dynamic world of e-commerce and uncover the tools and tactics that empower today's emerging entrepreneurs. Our podcast is part of our community with the same name. The community is geared to providing emerging e-commerce entrepreneurs with courses, content, and coaching to help you all launch and grow successful businesses. Check us out at ecomrevolution.co. Let's get things started. Welcome to another episode of the Ecommerce Revolution Podcast, where we bring you interviews with today's most inspiring e-commerce experts, giving you the tools and insights to launch, grow, and win in e-commerce. Today, we're diving into Agentic Commerce, the rise of AI shopping assistants, and what they mean for brands and entrepreneurs. Joining me is Scot Wingo, a 5-time founder who built ChannelAdvisor, led Spiffy, and now runs ReFiBuy, helping brands prepare for the GenAI shopping engines. He also writes extensively on his Substack, Retailgentic, where he's outlined the levels of shopping autonomy, where we will be diving into that topic today. Without any further ado, please welcome Scot to the Ecommerce Revolution Podcast. Scot, great to have you here. Thank you for making the time.
Hey, Ramin, I'm excited to be on. When I think about the long arc of e-commerce and revolutions, we're in the middle of like a new wave right now, so it's very timely that we're chatting.
Yes. I like to think of it. Yeah, it's maybe 30 years in, and we're still just getting started, I guess, is kind of how I look at it every day.
Yeah, so there's ebbs and flows, and we're definitely in a rising tide right now.
Absolutely. Well, tell everybody where you're joining us from today.
Yeah, I'm in North Carolina. There's a high-tech little zone called the Research Triangle Park. We shorten it to Triangle, so the Triangle area of North Carolina. And that encompasses 3 cities. So Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill are the 3 cities in the Triangle. Each of them has an anchor university of NC State, Duke, and Durham, and then the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and Chapel Hill. And those are all level 1 universities with lots of research, and then that spills out technology. I went to NC State, but there's a lot of smart people here, which is fun. And it's a great place to live. And I am on the Raleigh side of the Triangle, and I'm in ReFiBuy's office today, which looks like I'm stuck in a basement, but it's actually a really cool co-working facility. You can't see the cool part, unfortunately.
Oh, wow. Okay, very nice. Very nice. Well, I appreciate you explaining that. Yes, I had heard of the Research Triangle, did not know it was rebranded, I guess, as the Triangle. Very interesting.
Just less words, which is good.
Yes, that is awesome. Well, tell me, 5-time founder and, some of, the ChannelAdvisor, a name that I remember from back in the day when I started my e-commerce business, still around, right?
Yeah.
And
tell me. Rebranded. So we went public, and then we got bought So started it in 2001, went public in 2013, survived 9/11 and the Great Recession of 08, 09, which was arduous, but we made it through both of those disruptions. And then I moved to the board in 2015 to start my company Spiffy. So I was still involved. I was still on the board, just not day-to-day operations. And then in 2022, a private equity firm called Insight Ventures made an offer to combine us with Commerce Hub. And then they rebranded that to Rhythm, and then they misspelled the word rhythm. So that's, after 2022, I have no involvement in any poor decisions. I'm not a big fan of this Rhythm, but that's what it's called now, RITHUM or something like
Interesting.
that.
Well, and tell me about Spiffy really quickly. It's very interesting to me. It seems like a little different.
So the idea, there's this thing in our world of e-commerce that one way to look at, it's called the Great Bifurcation. And this guy at Deloitte, Kelsey Lobaugh, he came up with this kind of thought around retailer will split into retailers that focus on the convenient-oriented consumer and the value-oriented consumer. So in my area of North Carolina, the fastest-growing stores are dollar stores. So they're kind of on that value chain. And I'm a CNBC junkie, and I watch all of this stuff about retail. TJ Maxx has always been off to the races because it's kind of a value apparel. And then on the other side, Nordstrom's, through all these things we've gone through, Nordstrom's is always doing pretty well because there's a customer that likes that level of service. And then Amazon obviously is one of the ultimate convenient plays. You can save a little money there, but I would argue it's 90% convenience and 10% money saving at this point. Because you're literally like paying them to be in the club called Prime. So in a way, you feel like you're saving, but you're actually giving them money to get something. So I decided, well, if you look at services, that's the most inconvenient part of my life. I have a house. It's always got something going on and a bunch of cars, and it's just like a mess, right? I don't drive a bunch of cars, but my family has cars. And so I was thinking, what's an area there I could explore, and what would it look like? And I had a couple car washes as a side investment. And I was wondering, like, what would it look like if we tried to kind of bring everything you and I know about digital to car care? What would that look like? And that was Spiffy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating. I love it.
Yeah, it's in 30 locations. It started consumer, but largely we discovered pretty quickly the best sweet spot of density and high margin is fleets. So we actually work with a lot of the bigger fleets, rental car companies, a lot of autonomous vehicle companies, which will come up later, oddly enough. And then also, it's funny, I kind of did this to get away from Amazon because I spent 20 years helping people sell on Amazon. One of our biggest clients is Amazon Delivery. They call them DSPs. So we work a lot with the Amazon delivery fleet.
Oh, very nice. Okay. So, all right. So software, kind of figuring out that world, and now to the world of ReFiBuy and, and AI and Agentic Commerce. What is there a common thread that you've seen between these companies and the evolution that's brought you to this point?
Yeah. What I've kind of done over in my first company, it was just kind of like, I was like 24 or 25 and I just wanted to work on, and I'm an engineering person. So I wanted to just like work on cool stuff, right? So that was my criteria.
Yeah, I love it.
I want to work with fun people and do cool stuff. And at that point in time, cool stuff was like C++. I was like, I love this object-oriented programming. I'm going to do a company around that. But I didn't think about the other elements of company starting, like what is your addressable market? And, is this thing you want to work on at the beginning of its life cycle or its end? So over the decades of doing this, I've tried to get better at, and there's this one Jeff Bezos quote where someone asked, what are the trends happening that you're betting on changing? And he said, I'm going to bet on trends that aren't going to change. And if you read his, this is a good exercise for folks newer to our industry. You can actually go read his 1997 shareholder letter, which was the first year after they had gone public. And they actually refer to it in every one since then. And he basically says, we think people like value, low prices, and selection, and we're going to work on that. And, you could read that today and you're like, holy cow, that was like 97. And 28 years later, he was right. Those are trends that didn't change, right? So I try to identify these things. They're going to be these mega trends that I can kind of get on the start of, but they're going to be around for decades. The first one at ChannelAdvisor I latched onto, so was we were very early in helping people sell on eBay. And at that point, eBay was almost entirely an auction site. Today, auctions are the minority and fixed price is the majority. But at that point, it was the inverse. There wasn't even fixed price. You could kind of hack it with an auction with a buy it now, a little flavor to it, but no one did that. Everyone's like, no, I love the auction format. I want to waste time waiting for this thing so I can buy it. We were so naive back then.
Yes.
And I was thinking, well, eventually there'll be online malls, right? But we're not going to call them that because that's cheesy. But they're going to be what we call marketplaces, where you can go there. It's way more convenient. And I actually had a conversation with Pierre at a random eBay live event. He walked up to me, kind of serendipitously. And he said, as long as we help people, we make it easier to research, find, and buy things, then we'll have a big place. Because a lot of people were wondering, won't retailers go direct and won't that hurt eBay? And so his argument was, we'll have more selection and value, and thus value, and make it, and also be more convenient, which is the exact same Bezos type thing at the same time. They kind of had the idea of different executions. So then I was thinking, well, that's going to mean we're going to have more of these marketplaces and these online channels. And that's why we chose the name ChannelAdvisor. We're at some point, there's going to be lots of scenarios where you could sell things that aren't Nike.com or Dick's Sporting Goods that are going to be this third place that's not the brand and not the retailer, but a online mall that we now call marketplaces, and we're going to bet on that trend. So this was in 2001. I made the bet, and I was a little scared because it wasn't until 2007 that the second marketplace came along. So those were a long 6 years there where I was like, gosh, I really thought this was going to happen faster. And then Amazon came out. That was a good second one. So it was worth the wait. If you're going to have a second one, it's good that it's Amazon because, and it's funny, a lot of people don't remember this, but a lot of people thought it would fail because at that point they were largely a bookstore and they're like, what do they know about toys? And then they had an awesome toy year and so on and so forth. And then that marketplace, we rode that to our IPO. That basically is betting on that. And that trend is what really made the company. And then just, and now there's like, I don't know, 400 marketplaces, 500.
It's amazing.
If you global, they're everywhere.
That market has exploded.
Kroger's has one. Lowe's has added one, et cetera, et cetera, so on. So I would say that's the big difference. And the idea of Spiffy was like, we've seen products go digital. What's it look like if services go digital? And that was the theme. And I think we're still at just the cusp of that.
Wow.
And then the natural question is, what about ReFiBuy? And I think we're going to see, a big evolution/revolution in our world of these new channels. And I think the marketplaces are the old way of doing it, and agentic shopping engines are going to be how a big segment of people buy online going forward. And I think that's going to be a huge trend that we're just seeing the early days of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, do you remember that moment where, agentic commerce, the word maybe it wasn't the exact word, but you said, all right, this is it. This is happening.
Yeah, so I'd left Spiffy to work on something in AI, and I actually didn't think I'd be coming back to our world. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. And I started learning about it, and I realized at ChannelAdvisor, we always had this problem where our job was to take in tens of thousands of product catalogs. And as an engineering person, it's always surprised me that, in engineering, we love specifications and we love like a data sheet, and we know, like if we're working on a circuit board or something, we know exactly what the specifications of everything are. In the world of e-commerce, it's total random, right? So it's just like, it's a Wild West. So the way you could give someone the exact same product, it could be a shoe or whatever it is, and they'll describe it 800 different ways. Well, that's great, and it creates a lot of variety and merchandising opportunities, because that's part of merchandising, is being a little different. But it makes it very hard as the people managing the data to get it right. So, for example, our job was to take in all these like millions of SKUs and then figure out how to get them on eBay, Amazon, Walmart, Target, and these places that have very strict policies around how you describe products.
Right.
So we could do a lot of the manipulation of the data. A good example is like sizes. So we could do small, medium, large, XL. There's like 1,000 ways you could do that. And we had an algorithm that would look at all those ways and sort them down to what eBay wants, Amazon wants, et cetera. That's easy. But then at some point it gets into this spectrum of difficulty where it becomes subjective. And a good example that everyone can kind of understand is colors, right? So for example, let's say we've got a Nike shoe, and we know on Nike's site, they say there's 4 flavors of orange. There's like Nike orange, burnt orange, and yellow orange, which in itself is complicated, right? I had like the 4-color crayon box when I was a kid. So we're into like the 800 crayon box now. Anyway, but then as we're getting these Nike shoes in from, let's say we get offers for this one shoe from 300 retailers or people wanting to sell it, and we actually see there's 12 versions of orange. What do we do? And they're different, right? So they actually don't collapse into the ones. Some of them will collapse into the ones we know, and we can check that. That's programmatic. But then at some point, the algorithm says, I don't know what to do here. Someone's going to have to look at these oranges and figure out, is this an orange we haven't seen before? Like maybe from a stock out or something that isn't on Nike's site. Maybe there's an exception, or is it actually one of the other ones and they've messed up the name? So that's a problem that became big enough at ChannelAdvisor. We had hundreds of people working on it, and it became a pretty big drag on our business. And the reason it matters to the customer is if I say it's basically Nike orange and it's actually not, there is a Nike buyer out there that's going to be very angry about that. And they're going to, on Amazon, they're going to file a report called a significantly not as described, and it's called a SNAD report. And you get like 3 of those and you're basically nuked off Amazon, right? So our job at ChannelAdvisor is people are running, hundreds of millions of dollar businesses on our software, And if we make 3 little mistakes on the color orange, we're toast. So the stakes are actually pretty high. On the other side of that, then you would say, well, just don't, that's risky. Don't give them any attributes. Well, then you don't sell anything because the customer goes out and they may see like a picture and you're like, here's a Nike shoe. And we're really scared to tell you anything else about it because we could be wrong. And they're like, well, I can't tell what that is. I'm not going to buy it. So you have to solve this problem, or else you either get kicked off or you don't sell anything. Both of them are unacceptable for our customer. So we'd have humans work on this. And, so the long story short, I was reading more and more about, large language models and how they work and how they're trained on the GPUs. And then I was going into, there's a bunch of newer things that are kind of, that kind of GPTs have been percolating. That everyone knows they came on the scene late 22 when ChatGPT came out, and that's GPT-3. But I've been reading about those for a long time, and I had a pretty good understanding. But then some of the newer stuff is there's something called retrieval augmented generation, which is a way you can have a database attached to an LLM and get it to focus better and give it new knowledge that it wasn't trained on. You can give these, and then there's agents where you can give them tools to go do stuff, which makes them more instead of just being read only, where they just give you information like a chat, they can actually go do stuff, which is interesting and dangerous at the same time. And then they have memory. So it used to be they could only change through this training process that took 18 months. So they would always have a big lag to what they knew and when. And now they've kind of solved that, if you will, because they can learn in new information. On the inference side is another word that, if you're interested in this, you can kind of start to understand the difference between the training side of the thing and inference. And then I was reading Anthropic has been leading a lot of this thought leadership around this, and they said, well, once you understand this is a modern agent, here's some things we see customers doing with it, and one of them is you can set up in these little evaluation frameworks. They use this to catch hallucinations from models sometimes, but the way we would set up people to solve this orange problem is it got so hairy. Sometimes we'd want 3 people's opinions because one would probably be wrong. And once you got 3 or 4 people's opinions, then your chance of getting it right went up 4x. So we'd submit to a panel of people, is this the same color? And they'd see 2 boxes and it was either yes or no. And if the answer was 0-3 or 3-0, that told you something. If it was 2-1 or 1-2, you're like, we think this is right, but let's actually ask more people. So we built a whole system to do that. And it's basically the same pattern of problem solving that this Anthropic paper had. So then I naturally connected those, and I thought, I wonder if we could use this to solve this problem that we had and everyone in the industry has this problem. It's like the dirty laundry of e-commerce. Not only do we have it at ChannelAdvisor, every vendor we went and acquired 2 vendors, and we quickly learned that they all had a product. They all had outsourced teams working on this. Wow. Everyone does. Someone like Walmart and Amazon must have thousands of people somewhere working on these problems. Right. The bigger the marketplace side has people doing it, and we have people doing it, and everyone has people doing it. Every vendor has people doing this. You can go look on their LinkedIn, and when you see 200 people in Sri Lanka, that's what's going on. Yeah. It's not engineers. Side. Yeah. It's the unsexy, dirty laundry of e-commerce. So it's a big problem. And I was really more intellectually curious, could you solve this? Are we at the point where computers can work on this objective problem with AI? And the answer is yes. Yeah. So we started solving that problem and getting really great results, 99%. Wow. Better than human accuracy. And because we can scale it up faster than you can a bunch of, Sri Lankans or Bulgarians, and because you got to train them, and then they go on lunch breaks, they have vacations, they leave, etc. Agents don't have any of those problems. Right. And so then at the same time, Perplexity came out with Buy on Pro, and I was like, oh my gosh, I know how this movie is going to go now. These engines, the answer engines, have ended up with people using them for free or paying them. So people pay ChatGPT to use it because it's so helpful. And today, so this is fast forward to today, there's 800 million people well on its way to billions of people using ChatGPT. That's the number one by far. It's 70%. But if it's at 1 billion and it's 70%, there's another 300 million using the other 6 platforms we could talk about. There's 7 of them, and they're all kind of like a big big, it's just like marketplaces, like a big market map of them. But that's kind of how I think about them as answer engines or Gento shopping engines. And they have all, sure enough, they have all very quickly since we started the company and working on this, added increasingly sophisticated shopping capabilities where, Perplexity started with little product cards, which was kind of like our old school comparison shopping engines, like kind of like Google Shopping. But you and I come from an era where, at ChannelAdvisor, we also worked with those. And at one point we supported 60 comparison shopping engines. We're kind of down to one at Google Shopping. They've all gone out of business. But it kind of looks like that, where you get like a little bit of a product card and then you leap off to the site. And then now Perplexity, you can actually buy right on there. They send an agent to do the checkout. And then ChatGPT, it is leaked, they're working on a checkout. So they're actually going to be a marketplace where you will research, find, and buy the product all without leaving ChatGPT.
And they will get a cut, I assume.
Yeah, it's going to be how they make money.
Yeah.
Which I think is from the retailer's perspective, and I bet it won't be mandatory. I'm sure you can opt out into an either agentic purchase or send someone to your site. Right. But you're going to be, it's kind of like owning the buy box on Amazon or being FBA on Amazon or not. It's going to matter how much you sell because the users on that platform are going to prefer, okay, I've done my research. I found the product. I want to buy it right now. I don't want to like take more steps. And ChatGPT's buying agent has all my ship to, bill to, my preferences, my loyalty programs, my payment mechanisms. Bam, checking out is instantaneous. So we have changed the heart of what we've built, which is this capability that's very robust around anything around your product catalog. We have optimized it for this problem.
Wow. All right. So let's take a step back here, and maybe there's some people out there who still don't know what agentic commerce is. The pure definition. Can you just define it?
Yeah. So it's using one of these new technologies born kind of in the fourth quarter of 2022 that we would call, I try not to use the term AI because I got a master's degree in comp sci and I took 2 AI classes. So it's been around, and I'm not young. So it's been around for a long time. It was always just like another 10 years out. Well, it's here now. Like these things are actually, we know that. But so first of all, that's the foundation is GenAI. So I'll use that to kind of draw a demarcation line of 2022 is when the generative AIs, which is part of what GPT stands for, that's that big thing that really took these from noise to being really helpful and successful. So that's the foundation. And then agentic means it's got agency. So just like you hire an agency to do things for you, it has the ability to do stuff on your behalf. So that's the agentic part. And when you have multiple agents, it's now agentic. So if you just have one, it's agent. But these things typically have a team behind the scenes working for you. That's why we use the word agentic. And then commerce is, this team of little GenAI powered agents that help you buy things. And that's really what it is. It's using the GenAI system because it has the world's knowledge and it has a web database in it now. They all have a web search capability. It is very good at helping you buy stuff. And there's several ways we buy things. If you're going through, I was just working on a blog post where I was showing a bicycle example. If you're buying a new mountain bike, that's like probably $1,000, depending on who you are. It's hard to get one for under $1,000. So it's like $1,000 to a $10,000 purchase, depending on, what your budget is. For most people, that's a highly considered thing. And you're going to want to spend some time on it. And you may not have, it's not something you buy that often. So you're going to reset and go to the top of the funnel, which I call research. Our company name is basically the buyer journey that I talk about. So you're going to do a lot of research. You're going to be like, all right, I've heard of Cannondale and Trek and what's new in mountain bikes. And you're going to kind of understand what's new. And then you're going to form an opinion that would be good for your use case. And then you're going to get into I know I want, front shocks and back shocks and this, that, and the other within my price point. And then you're going to narrow it down to 2 or 3 products. Now you're into the find area. And then you're going to want to go buy it. So you're going to say, I need it for a trip in 2 weeks and I want it shipped, or I want to go to a store. I want to pay with this mechanism. I want buy now, pay later. There's a lot of criteria you have that are in that part of the decision. So this agent can help you through that process, however much you want it to the point where when you get further down the funnel, especially for things that are not highly considered. You don't want to like really curate it yourself. When you curate it yourself, it's like a GPS sitting on the side guiding you. But a lot of this stuff, like I get a lot of these. I have dogs and they love these bully sticks, right? So I order like 4 of these a month. And I now just say to my agent, oops, I need to reorder bully sticks. Just like you would, a lot of people have done that with, I have one here, so I won't say it, Alexa. A lot of people have done that. And then it kind of like, you're like, oh, that was all right. But this is even better because you're just like, you're having a chat with ChatGPT and you're like, oh yeah, I need to order more bully sticks. And it just kind of goes and does it for you. So there's like a set of your things you do. And then if you get joy from, I don't, but if you get joy from picking out a pair of shoes or you go to the store for that and you don't have to invoke your agent for that. Or maybe you do a little research with it and you're like, what's the big fashion thing this fall? And it'll tell you, oh, these animal prints are big right now. And then you can go shop with that knowledge. So you can just jump off and do it that way. So there's a lot of different contexts that it works with you, but think of it as having this army of robots, that are pure digital at your disposal to help you save time by buying stuff and researching it.
Yeah, I will say that this past summer, before agents came out on agent mode came out on ChatGPT, my wife and I used ChatGPT heavily to plan our trip to Italy. And the whole process, I was thinking, I'm like, all right, by next year, the agent will take over and go and take care of booking this and booking that. Right now, it's just giving you information, and some of it was, so-so. It wasn't spot on everything, but I definitely saw the vision for where this is going, and I'm sure travel is a big area where people it's a hassle to plan.
It is. And I kind of like, commerce is like it's like anything you would transact, and travel's in there. I do, in my world, I'm going for more like physical goods, but travel is going to be a huge category for Agentic Commerce. I have a friend that has like 4 boys, and they have this requirement. They love to go to like these like little closed kind of like resorts, but it has to have a basketball setup. They have to play basketball everywhere they go. I do not have that problem. And, and he spends an inordinate amount of time calling all these places, asking if they have basketball courts and like, are they operational and nice? And, he said he saved like 10 hours using ChatGPT because it can look through all the reviews and things. Every review that's ever written is in its brain. And it's like, yeah, it does. And it's highly rated. And it was just played, I see a review of someone that played on it 30 days ago.
Interesting.
So think about the time, of calling 10 places and, you've called these places. It's very hard to get someone that can be helpful a lot of time in today's world. So it is going to really change how you travel, buy things online, discover new products, the whole thing.
Well, I wonder, a follow-up to that is, information now on your site, on your e-commerce site becomes incredibly important, right? I mean, making sure that you have the reviews, the FAQs, the great product description, because at the end of the day, again, the agent is going and doing the research for you, but it's only as good as the information it can find, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. If we're a retailer or a merchant or, however you want to say it, a brand, anyone selling online, you now have a new thing to worry about. So we've always had to worry about humans, right? So our product detail pages, which I'll call PDPs, they're largely designed for humans. So over time, since you and I have been at this a while, in eBay, it used to be just text and they added an image and it was game changing. And now the text is shrunk. Like, so most PDPs have like 4 or 5 bullets because we as humans want that TikTok experience. We're like, bam, I want to know fast and buy it. And then largely it's images and videos and that type of thing. So it's gotten much more multimedia and much less textual. But everyone in our world has also had to deal with Google, right? So that's another entity that wants to consume your page through SEO. So we spend a lot of time on SEO where there's this thing called metadata on the page that the user doesn't see, where we can tell Google more about it. So that's where we can get a little wordier. But now we have a third one. So we've had human and Google / SEO for a while. Now we have what's called GEO, which is GenAI engine optimization.
Right.
There's a whole battle over what to call this. I don't care. I'm just going to use that one.
AEO, GEO.
Yeah, AIEO and LLMEO and like all this. Yeah. So let's just call it GEO. So now there's a third entity, which is this 7 7 agentic commerce engines that want to go to your PDP and learn about what you have. And the way you think about that in some ways is similar, like 10% is similar than SEO, but 90% is different. So for example, Google's algorithm is based off of backlinks, like how it's an inbound link popularity contest, and speed of page. There's a lot of things. Like an SEO person will email me and say I missed 6 of them. But for our world of retail, once you get the basics down, thinking about the merchandising slice of this, a lot of it is like how popular is your product. So so that's where you then go and you get influencers and stuff, and it is what it is. You do what you can, but it's like not much you can do about inbound links. You don't go out and buy a bunch. That's all going to get messed up and all. Right. But what the engines want is they crave more content and context and authority, but not the same authority as Google, like reviews is what they mean by a review. Like Google doesn't actually look at reviews. Google could care. They summarize them and roll them up in a couple of places, but it's not part of the SEO algorithm. Whereas the LM, it's a huge part. So someone saying something on Reddit about your product really matters to them. Core Google, it doesn't matter. So and in a way, so we kind of have the product detail page where a human wants to see 4 bullets. Google wants to see 4 bullets and some metadata, like maybe 4 bullets. The GenAI wants to see an 80-page PDF that describes your product in every way and possible context it can be used. Wow. So the metadata explodes out is part of what's happening. And and what you don't want to do though is you don't want to change your PDP because we're always going to have humans, Google still, and now a third user, the GEO, using your PDP. We're going to have to kind of like figure out a way to do this. Yeah. Now, thankfully, what's starting to happen is they're all opening up a merchant center where you can actually send a version of your catalog optimized for them. So that's what we're helping retailers build. So Perplexity and ChatGPT have merchant centers, and then Copilot is based on Bing, so you can use the merchant center there. And Gemini, which is Google has 3 flavors of AI we can go into, but that's going to be the big surviving one, the core of what they do. It's called Gemini, and you can get to it through the Google Merchant Center. So you can get to 4 of the 7 with a merchant center, which is kind of gives you really good coverage to start with.
So you would recommend then that a merchant get on this? I mean, obviously, hopefully they've taken care of Google Merchant and they've done Bing, but now they should get into Perplexity as well, upload that information or connect.
Yeah, and they need to, even the ones they're already sending, again, they're probably sending them to Bing and Google for the old Google shopping. Right. So there's a set of things you need to do to upgrade that. There's kind of like feed 1.0, and this is we're kind of like on feed 4.0. We kind of like jumped from the basic feed that is out there to now you need to give like it's materially different and much more robust what you want to be sending.
Okay, and then that's what you guys do at ReFiBuy. You help them with this part of what you do.
Yeah. So what we do is we pull in your catalog and we evaluate it, and we say, all right, here's your catalog and some things in your existing, so a catalog has all about the SKU, variations if it has it. I'm sure you're familiar with variations, and that's like the size color matrix. And it can also be like, it can be a matrix of different attributes. Usually it's size color, but it could be like with auto parts, it's this thing called fitment, which is a whole nother enchilada. And then you've got like attributes, right? So what we do is we take what you have and we say, here's how you improve that for LLMs. And then the customer, we always have a merchant in the middle, we call it. So a human in the middle that's like approving these things. We don't want it to just run off because people, our customer cares deeply about how their products are described and things. We make recommendations and usually they take them, but add their own flavor to it. Then we say you should add these attributes that we would really help. And then they add those. So we call that enrichment. So there's like enhancement and enrichment. Then we publish it out to the engines for them. Then if they want to, at any point in this process, it's their data. They can pull the data down. It's in our system, but it's their data. So they can pull it down and put it into a PIM if they want to, or we don't recommend putting it into your e-commerce platform where it gets published because the PDP will start to diverge from what a human would like and what an LLM would like. So you got to keep that in mind. But a lot of them want to store it somewhere, which is great. So we call that a kind of an ingestion is where we get your catalog, and then a sync is SYNC is where you synchronize it back to your legacy systems. Then we publish it out to the engines. And then we also put it on the metadata onto your site where appropriate, or maybe you have to have a manual process to do that if we don't have access to it. Then what we do is it's closed loop. So we've kind of come around the horn here. Now we're at the top. Then what we do is we take, let's say you have 5,000 SKUs. We're going to take a material number, usually 10%, across categories and price points. Then what we do is called monitoring them. So we actually go to the 7 engines and run prompts to see how your products are, those 500 products are showing up. And we look at them, pop a product card, we look at the product card, we click on it, and then we go as deep into the shopping process as we can without buying something. And then we screen capture all that. Then we have a set of agents that look and we've identified. I'm actually writing a blog post on this, so it's fresh in mind. We're talking about 13 of these, but we have a much larger list of ones we've identified are problems, frequently encountered problems with this setup because it's so new. So just to give you an idea, if we look at 500 SKUs, usually 100 of them are going to be pretty good where they own the product card, and 400 are going to be kind of jacked up. So we have a lot of work to do at the beginning. And there's a myriad of things that can go wrong in there. So then what we do is we find out what those are, and then our system says it talks to the monitor part, talks to the product card evaluation, the product catalog evaluation part, and says, for these 500 SKUs, make these changes. These are the problems we made. And then it works and it makes changes. And then we republish. Then we see if we fixed everything. And then we're on. So we keep chewing away at this problem cycle after cycle until we get you to 100%. Then when we are, we can then change the sampling or do a variety of things to make sure your whole product catalog is optimized for these engines.
Wow. So literally taking you back to your ChannelAdvisor days.
Yeah, we could never do this closed loop thing at ChannelAdvisor because it would require manpower at every level. And we didn't have, we could barely deal with that first step of getting your product catalog in and figuring out what was wrong because of this canonicalization problem I'm talking about.
Yes.
But because we've automated that now, it enables us to really focus on higher level impact, which is this closed loop learning system, which is pretty wild.
That's amazing. I mean, that chewing away at the problem over and over again. Just out of curiosity, I mean, do you have a stat or are there numbers out there in terms of how many people, let's call it the old way of looking, right? Doing a Google search and, discovering a bunch of links on a product or into Google Shopping versus using ChatGPT or another one of these AI platforms to find products. Is there data out there on there? Yeah.
There is. So I'm looking at more of the disruption side, right? So and ChatGPT has the best data out there. So right now they have about 800 million monthly active users, MAUs, is in that. And it's tricky because they report weekly active users. So you got monthly, weekly, and daily. So you got MAUs, DAUs, and WAUs. So it can be, you have to be very careful when you see these stats. The one I kind of look at is 800 million people in the US largely are using ChatGPT. And they're the fastest company to get there by far. If you look at a chart, it's just vertical. And, TikTok, Instagram, and all took 4 or 5 years to get there. They've done it in basically 30 months or something like that. So less than 3 years. And it keeps growing. And we don't even have data since they released ChatGPT 5. There was noise around ChatGPT 5, but it's designed, a lot of people haven't used the best models because they used the free version. And now that's trickling into the free version. I think when they have a checkout, they will put that in the free version and we'll be very much off to the races. And I think that's probably coming by holiday this year. Wow. So you look at the data. So we have ChatGPT being used by 800 million. All the data I see, and this is typically survey data because ChatGPT doesn't release this, says at least half of them are using it for shopping. Wow. So we have 400 million people using ChatGPT for shopping right now. Now, I think most of them are just kind of getting into the research part of it, or maybe they're doing a little travel like you were, but they're starting to get in there. And when holiday comes around, it will be top of mind. And I think this holiday, we're going to see that get up to 60, 70%. So you're going to see more people use ChatGPT, and we're going to get to the bulk of them using it for shopping.
I mean, think about this. It's amazing to think about the holiday. You have all these people that you need to buy for, and you can put their profiles into ChatGPT, and go out, find me the products. I mean, my gosh.
I have a 14-year-old niece, and she's so hard to buy for it. I just bought I included it in my blog post because I found an error on the product card, and and she, it's funny, like when my kids were 14, my daughter, she was still like on the tail end of Barbies and maybe like a fun little electronic thing.
Yeah.
Well, now they're on their third smartphone, and they don't care. Toys are stupid, and they're very much into beauty products at 14 because they're taking selfies, right? So so I got her like a little. She won't watch this, but I got her like a fun, and they love these little packs. So there's like this little pack I found, but it was all recommended by ChatGPT, and it was like, this has just come out. It's kind of trendy. It's got this Jet Set brand. So, and some influencer recommended it.
You feel that by this holiday, we will be able to use, and if they enable checkout in ChatGPT, then it's doing. Now, of course, there are security issues. I think I read that it's going to also ask you if you want to take over and finish, so you don't put those who don't want to put their credit cards in. So what you think, it's off to the races this holiday season?
I do. I think so. So all the other thing that's interesting about the survey data is people trust the GenAI answer engines is kind of what they're calling them, considerably more than Google and Amazon and even a retailer's website. And I think it's because we've reached this point in our industry where there's so much ads that it's tipped over into this, like, okay, that's kind of helpful. Thanks for showing me that product. It is now spam, and it's detracting and it's eroding trust. So I don't think they're going to do ad networks because they know this. And I think they're going to really be focused on transactional stuff. And I think it's going to be a pretty big part. So, people are seeing this. One of the reasons retailers come to us is they're seeing their SEO traffic fall off a cliff. So in Q4, it kind of started. And right now, there's reports in aggregate. If you look at SimilarWeb, it's like 10 to 15% of organic traffic is down. Because what happened is, in reaction to ChatGPT's wild success, Google realized, okay, we're a search engine. That's an answer engine. This model of giving you links to click off of, we monetize through cost per click, CPC. We're going to have to give you answers. So they started injecting the AI overviews, and those are increasingly coming in commercial terms where there's no click. And then they have AI mode, which a lot of people can just go right into AI mode where you're in a full ChatGPT Perplexity competitor. Then they also have Gemini. So they have like 3 flavors now, aside from core Google, that will get you one of these answer engines. So that, by this time next year, I think Google traffic will be down to like, very, very small for people, which is in our world is it's scary because that's SEO is the best traffic because it's free. Like, and usually people spend a lot more on SEM where you're paying it through AdWords because they're getting that mix of free traffic.
Yeah, amazing. Well, let's jump in and talk about, you published, the levels of shopping autonomy, right? This is a framework, and you came up with this, right? You kind of built this framework out, if I understood correctly.
Yeah, and I've been writing some posts on this and trying to kind of think about what do we need as an industry need to think about as we talk about this. And so the first thing I did is I was kind of like, here's where I think, here's the engines and where they are, and here's a couple players to keep an eye on. One of those is Apple, right? So Apple has all the resources to be a big player in this, but they've been on the sidelines. So we'll see. So they're kind of like a dark horse. And then I was like, well, that's helpful, but I need a visual way of showing where they are on this timeline of where I think they're going. And I came up with the 5 levels of agentic automation, agentic commerce automation. So it starts at level 0 where they're basically doing nothing. So they don't even know what a product is. Many of them are there. So Grok, for example, GROK, which is XAI's or Elon Musk AI. I think it's going to get there pretty quick. And then also Claude doesn't do a lot, which is Anthropic's. They're more focused on coding, but I think they'll get there too. Once ChatGPT starts making billions off a checkout, you're going to see a lot of checkouts. So then as we progress, and then so 0 is doing nothing. 1 is kind of really getting better at research, and then 2 is helping you on the find process, and then there you're starting to it's usually text still, but it's starting to say retailers and prices in the text. So Grok actually, the super Grok is actually doing this. So there is a flavor of Grok that's kind of getting there. And then 3 is when you're starting to pop product cards. And we definitely have Perplexity, ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, and one more are in that category. Mm-hmm. And then level 4 is where they're actually going and doing the purchase for you. So Perplexity is kind of there, right? So, and then level 5, is really a thought experiment right now. It's kind of like, at some point, these things are going to really look at nuanced ways of buying things for you. Like, it'll know you're in the various loyalty programs and you have Best Buy Bucks or whatever it is, or Kohl's Cash, and it will start to really think through this matrix of secondary considerations as you buy something. There's, there's like, if you put it on this card, what kind of miles do you get? This is what gets hard as a buyer, right? Is like, holy cow. Or sometimes I'll need something same day and it won't be, the retailer can't get it me. I know it's on either Instacart or one of those. Increasingly, the Uber Eats and the DoorDash have physical products. I'll know it's on there, but then I kind of have to back into it from there and figure it out. You can spend a lot of time on this, and they'll just be able to navigate it. They'll basically say, what's more important to you? One of these, rank these 3 things, and you'll tell it, and you'll say, here's the best. If you really care about your miles on your credit card because you're saving up for a vacation, here's the best way to optimize against that criteria. So I think that's level 5. I also think we'll get into price negotiations where the buying and selling agents will chat with each other, and the selling, the buyer will be like, hey, I'm really interested in this bike. And it'll say, okay, if you tell me, the price is this, but if you tell me more about your buyer's, details, I could, and if they sign up for my email list, I'll give you, 100 off.
Wow.
And, or, if this is their second or if do they want to trade in a Cannondale bike or a Patagonia thing or whatever. So I think our agents will go negotiate. They'll go off on and come back to us and say, oh, I've negotiated with these 3 different sellers and I've got a wide range of things for us to think about. And, so I think that's kind of level 5 is this, it starts to add all this extra value for negotiating for you. And then also maybe even getting predictive and saying, Scott, I know you don't want to do subscribe and save. I hate subscribe and save because for some reason, even though I use these bully sticks and I get them every 2 weeks, if I did subscribe and save for that, I'd suddenly end up with 800 of them. I don't.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
I don't understand that.
I struggle with. I can never get the dates right. I'm like,
yeah.
I had this. The dog was eating dog food for a month. I had it down. Now all of a sudden I've got 3 bags.
But imagine you had an agent, and remember you went on that trip you talked about, and it knows you've been on a trip, and you probably didn't use bully sticks then, and it's like, well, I know Ramin's not really going to need bully sticks.
Yeah,
in 2 weeks. I'm gonna in 3 or 4 weeks. I'll ping him and see if he wants them. Whatever it is. So I think there'll be a predictive element to it. Or if it starts to learn that you love to switch your hat out for seasons or something, it'll say, "Hey, I found this really cool fall hat coming up that you may want to consider."
Wow. I mean, I think about the part where, it goes out and negotiates on your behalf. That idea, that takes you back to the old days, the bazaar, right? Where you would go in and, that merchant had the same thing as 2 others, and you'd go over here and this guy would give it to you and he'd start lowering the price, and all this stuff happens, which doesn't really happen right now as much. You're not negotiating with online, you don't go in there. I mean, maybe you get a discount for signing up for email, but the fact that they are negotiating on your behalf with the commerce or the merchant's agent, that's amazing.
Yeah. And to be clear, that's my prediction. That's when we'll get to this full autonomous level. Yeah. But I made that in February or March,
right?
And I felt like every one of these predictions, it's interesting in the old world of marketplaces. Every prediction I made took 5 times longer than I would, and everyone's taking 1/5 as long in the AI era.
Yeah.
so it may be next year we start to see some of that. We'll see.
Yeah. You made a prediction that marketplaces would be a big thing, and it took 7 years between the
just to get number 2.
Yeah,
I would say it probably took 20 years for it to really come to fruition.
Do you see? I mean, you mentioned Apple, and we're just sitting here, talking heads, thinking about where this, they've got the resources, they've got a lot of times they sit on the sidelines for a while on other products. You do see them as being a big contender. In your opinion, they can really make a bang out of this, right?
Yeah, I think they will.
They've got
get
payments. They get the whole.
They'll get off the
system.
bench. They've got Apple Pay, and then if you think about it, to fulfill that dream that I kind of that level 5.
Yeah.
I'm going to need to really trust it, right? And Apple scores high on trust because a lot of your personal identifiable information is stored on a secure enclave on the device. This is Apple's obsessive about privacy.
Right.
And that's where it gets really interesting because you could give it, and because on your phone, it has your browser activity, a big portion of it, your email, your calendar. Those contexts are how you can learn a lot in the shopping world. And if you trusted Apple and it wasn't all the things that we're doing were not fed up into the cloud where it's a little scary and they were locked down on the device. And in fact, they've made an increasingly big deal. I just watched we're doing this a day after they launched the iPhone 17. They make a big point to talk about the neural engine they call it, but it's basically a GPU. They're putting more and more GPU on the device, and their research group has a lot of papers around how they're getting these models to run on your phone. So if the model ran on your phone and it had a little memory or retrieval augmented generation in that secure enclave it could pull from, that could be their edge and how they're different.
Yeah, I think you mentioned trust, and this, herein lies, back in the day, people simply putting their credit card on a screen, putting their credit card numbers in and hitting submit was a huge deal. And now we're going into the world of, hey, listen, my agent has my credit card information already, so trust becomes a big factor. And yes, you're right, Apple has a great reputation in that department, and that could push them, way over the edge. In a good way. Interesting.
Yeah. And there's a lot of, I think in the early days, there'll be a lot of checking in with you. So the agent will come back to you and say, all right, I have found what you want. I'm going to buy this product at this price with this shipping and that, and I'm going to charge this card this amount. Do you want to proceed? So it's easy for people to get freaked out when I have this conversation that it's going to run crazy and but I think in the early days, and I think you'll spin it up with a task and you'll say reorder ballistics, and then you won't care, right? Like I know, unless come back to me if the price has changed more than 5% or something like that. Okay. Yeah. And then if I'm buying a bicycle, I'm going to want to be along the whole journey. So I think you will have total control still. A lot of people feel like they're losing control. And I think you'll have total control in this agentic commerce world.
Okay. Well, tell me really quickly your thoughts on where does Shopify fit into this? They just recently, launched their, launch into the agentic space. I guess the beginning of what they see. I mean, how do you see them playing in? They are the biggest e-commerce platform by number of merchants, I believe, or maybe they're still second to. Well, no, I think they are number one at this point.
They're big. They have huge GMV. So I think they have a lot of assets, but there's a lot of risk. This is risky for them, and I think they're being very smart by leaning into it. So they're working with ChatGPT and Perplexity. They're trying to work with everybody. Yeah. But the risk to Shopify is the win is all those guys look at all the work they've done. They're like, we don't want to do that. We'll just use the Shopify merchants and we want to have them on-ramped. The risk to Shopify though, is they get greedy and they want to do the checkout themselves. So I don't know if you ever looked at checkout at Shopify's financials, but they're like a 10% software company and a 90% fintech. Yeah. They make all their money off of the checkout.
Capital, checkout, all of that. Yeah. The big.
Yeah. So it's largely the checkout skim and then, double dipping with every payment mechanism pays them on the back end, as does every shipping mechanism. So they have payment, Stripe and all these people pay them. Every dollar of GMV yields a lot of money for them through the back of this whole thing. So if they lose that, that's the risk. So if ChatGPT says, we want to charge 10% and we want to keep 10%. We want that 10%, and that's ours and not yours. That's the risk to Shopify.
Yeah, and part of their rollout was a checkout, right? That was a what they call a universal checkout, where you can. So how does that? If ChatGPT has their own checkout, they don't need Shopify's checkout, right? So that's an interesting world.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Wow, this is a fascinating world. So. What do you see 2030? Let's go out that far real quickly. What do you see it looking like? Do you see level 5 in terms of what's happening in the agentic commerce side of things? Are we there by 2030?
2030 will definitely be there. Yeah.
Okay.
We may be there by 26.
Wow.
I wouldn't have said that 4 months ago, but things are happening way, way faster than I thought they would.
Fascinating.
So I think the PayPal CEO had a good prediction, which was by 2030, 25% of e-commerce will be agentic. And that feels right to me. I think there's a shot it goes over that. I think it could be as high as a third or a half of e-commerce is switched over, but it'll happen way, way faster than everything we've lived through so far.
Do you think this opens up a great opportunity for the emerging e-commerce entrepreneur, somebody who's just getting started now? I mean, if they can figure this out and they can put their, optimize their site the right way now, do you see this really like leveling the playing field and anybody can get into e-commerce and win?
Yeah, if I look back at the marketplace world, we had I remember these two brothers, their last name was Rath, R-A-T-H, and they were selling overstock golf equipment called rock bottom golf. And they were basically just selling on marketplaces. They grew that to like a $200 or $300 million business and sold it for some ungodly amount through the rise of Amazon and eBay.
Wow.
And, I think there's going to be new businesses born. I had Roy Rubin, founder of Magento, on the podcast. He said there will be $1 billion brands built with no website that will just sell to agents.
Amazing. So the website disappears, and that's a problem for Shopify too, right?
Why do you need a web? The website will be this. It'll be there for the bots to read data.
Wow.
Possibly.
This is. I mean, it's great to sit and think about these, but I can see how this play. I can see a lot of what you're saying, how it plays out. This is interesting, and I guess pay attention if you're just getting into e-commerce. Don't start looking at the traditional ways of marketing. Look at the new ways of marketing and pay attention to those because they're moving so quickly. Fascinating. Wow. This has been amazing. Well, tell everybody where they can find you because they need to go find you quickly.
Yeah. So you can find me on LinkedIn. So it's Scot with one T, SCOT, Wingo, Wingo. And then Retailgentic is where I put a lot of the thought leadership out there. And there's a podcast as well as a Substack there, as you mentioned. And then, if you want to learn more about our company, it's ReFiBuy, ReFiBuy.ai. Wow.
And I look forward to continue to read, the thought, your thought leadership right now in this area. Fascinating content, and anybody who hasn't subscribed, definitely go and subscribe to Scot's newsletter. You will be enlightened, and you will be also maybe just a little get a little nervous, but nervous in a good way, right?
Yeah. Part of my job is to scare you a little bit so that you make sure you take action, because I do think that's best for you. So,
well, Scot, I appreciate you coming on. It's been wonderful talking to you, and I look forward to your predictions coming true. And believe me, I'm paying close attention to this world. So thank you again for coming on, and thank you everybody for tuning in. Scot is a wealth of knowledge, so definitely tune into what he is saying out there. And at the end of the day, agentic commerce is a very, very important area that we all must pay attention to. Anytime these new emerging technologies come into place, it's an opportunity for somebody who's just getting started. Also, the big guys out there, but somebody who's getting started to really build a successful business. So if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe to wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to check out the links in the show notes. We'll put all of Scot's information in the show notes, and you can subscribe to his Retailgentic Substack. And at the end of the day, we hope that you take this information and you keep working to launch and grow your e-commerce business and ultimately win. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks, Ramin.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to the end of another episode of the Ecommerce Revolution Podcast. Don't forget to check out past episodes, which are all available on demand on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. Ready to join the revolution? Become an exclusive part of our growing community of emerging e-commerce entrepreneurs at ecomrevolution.co. Until next time, see ya.